Hello, lovely people. I think we're cooking. I'll get one more light on in here, brighten the place up a little bit. Alrighty. It is 9:30 on Friday night, East Coast time. I'll be working on some 3D models. The Kickstarter's going. It's going great. We launched yesterday afternoon. There he is, NPC. Nice to see you. Oh, I should get the chat going in here. Okay, we're gonna give a shout out to Kevin MacLeod, and then we should have your we should have the chat. Hopefully it'll appear. A little out of practice with YouTube and Facebook, but we're streaming to YouTube and Facebook right now. Sorry, a little cough. Really good to see you. Congrats on 100+ subscribers. I think I saw 104 at last count. The idea is to stream here for a little bit, see who pops on. I usually don't do the late night thing. Oh man, my goodness, where's my restream chat? There we are. Yeah, there we are. So, yeah. 105. Fantastic. NPC. Super stoked for you. What can I do? Ooh, can I turn on the other? No, I don't think I can. But can I do both? Can we jump back and forth? Yeah, there we are. So we exceeded the Kickstarter goal in about 90 minutes, a little over 90 minutes on yesterday. So we launched a little bit after noon, and around 1:30 or so, we hit the goal. It was a modest goal. A lot of my campaigns are shooting for like 5 or 7K or but I appreciate that, NPC. Usually shooting for a bigger goal, but this is in the tabletop gaming area of Kickstarter, so I'm way out of my depth. I've done Kickstarters in the comics and webcomics sections, but when it comes to gaming, I don't know what I'm doing. And from all the research I've done, I can't say I'm an expert. The research I looked at the tabletop area, minis don't do great. Source books do great if it's a compelling or inviting world. There's one Kickstarter going on right now or soon wrapping up called Bloodpunk, and it's this big fat book with kind of a steampunk, but everything in the world is powered by blood. It's kind of a grisly idea, but the artwork looks beautiful. They've clearly put a lot of time into it. The people who are doing it are very passionate. And that campaign's going gangbusters. So, I mean, that's a real resource, and it's a very expensive item. I think the book is $60 or something like that. And, yeah, so, I mean, you don't have to sell many of those to get to a very big number. And I'm still big on making sure I've got a very affordable product. The minis couldn't be as cheap as I would like because they're very complicated and very detailed. But like the Sir Quimp mini, this is the actual one. I got to assemble the set. The detail's outstanding. Outstanding. All the little things I put in them 3D models, all these little things that I've sculpted on here, the arrows, the fletching, the runes on the sword, the crest on the tabard, it's all there in an incredibly small size. So I would love the whole set to have been $25, but the best I could do would make it $45, and then I'm like, okay, anyone who backs it early can save $5 more. But it's also kind of a crafting project because you have to assemble these. It's sort of like a model kit in a way. At least he is, because he's got 9 pieces in this tiny thing, and a lot of that is, I've got a larger print I can show. Well, you have it on the screen there. It's these arrows that are sticking out. If you had a mold that you have to pull the figure out of, those arrows are going to come right off. So one of the first casters I was talking to were saying, whoa, no, let's get the arrows out of there. Let's simplify the figure. And the next company I was talking with, and they weren't available. I would love to have worked with them. But the next person I spoke with said, okay, we can do that. There'll be individual pieces. And so they did things like where this arrow goes into his chest, they kind of bored a little hole, and they made the arrow a little bit longer, so that the arrow, little dab of glue, the arrow goes right in. And yeah, tons of little things. The middle-aged logo on the bottom of the platforms. And some of them are quite a bit easier. I think Melvin only has 4 pieces. It's his body, his 2 arms, and the platform. Bob has 4 pieces. Really interesting in that his head and the front of the ruff is one section, and the back of the ruff and the body is another section, and they kind of just slide into one another. The attaching that sign to the front of him, which was a separate piece, mostly because there's a hollow, and you think of these molds as kind of like that magic trick that magicians do, where it's a giant ring. Any kind of hollow like that sort of requires some weirdness in terms of molding, like, because you kind of imagine the mold is this semi-sturdy thing that the resin gets poured into, and they have to pull the mold out. So if there's a true gap in a thing like that, how's a mold going to come out? So it's really weird. So I didn't design these. If I was designing these with model making in mind, it shows that I'm not, I had some thought that way, but I didn't really know the intricacies of it. The idea that I could have just filled in the space behind the sign and had Bob pull it closer to his chest. Like make his arms just a little bit shorter, and this whole thing would have been so much easier. But as it is, you have to glue the little sign on. And Baby Dragon Jarn was the easiest. He's just a dragon. You just put him on top of the skulls. Which one is my favorite? Wow. I gotta go with Quimp. He's just so complicated. He's just so. He's my favorite. I love them all. I love them all. I think. Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know. There's like so much character with each one of them. I love the motion that's in Melvin's figure, the kind of sense of him walking forward, and there's a kind of a drag on the robes. I can hide these. Those are the actual raw files. Super Beard. These were all named after whatever the largest thing was that was connected. But his figure, I love the hands. The mug. So anyway, the campaign's going great. We busted through one stretch goal kind of right away. I knew it was there. I added it was kind of a easy to get to one. It was like the very next one, and I knew the project's expensive to do because making the master casts and all that stuff. There's a lot of money I fronted before we even got to this stage. So the minis could be made, and I could show people on the campaign page, hey, here's the thing you're going to be getting. And I have this dream in my head that I'm going to deliver ahead of schedule, which almost never happens on Kickstarter, especially in the gaming area. It's almost like, oh no, it's always 6 months late or a year late. But I said these would ship in October, but since they would start manufacturing them as soon as I would give them a number as to how many we have to manufacture, and I just don't know that number yet. What else? Oh, this is a large. I'm also selling the as part of the campaign are the STL files. So if someone gets the STL files, they can just pay money to anybody who's got a resin printer, or if you have a resin printer, you could just print them yourself, and then you don't have to assemble anything. That's how I felt about some of these things. I thought if somebody doesn't want to assemble them, I wanted to make sure that there's a way to do that, because I enjoyed the heck out of it. It was a fun project. It was almost like, okay, not only do I get these minis, but I get this little crafting thing to do. But I'm really happy with them. And then there's Waddlebottom, who's our stretch goal. Let me open that up. He is, if we hit, he's this next stretch goal after 4. So at 6, if we can get there, we might be able to by the end of the campaign. Or, although I'm kind of running out of people to contact at this point. I'm really happy with how this one turned out. Just because it was just so much work. The first thing I tried to do with this model was create a large wing shape, like kind of a large piece of clay in the platform, in the program, and then just kind of mush it into the shape of wings. And it wasn't working. So I ended up creating each feather. So I built that wing one feather at a time. And then, each one of them is most of them are a little bit different. There are a couple of that are exactly the same because, when they are so small. And I did get a sample print made. This is not an official print from the... there's a larger one here, a larger resin print. This has some gray primer on it, so it's a little bit dull looking. I'm hoping to add a little bit of paint to this before I go to Heroes Con this week. Always so much to do. But yeah, Waddle Bottom was definitely up there as one of my favorites. But I haven't done that many, so I guess they're all my babies. Let me see. Okay. Yeah, NPC. Yeah, if you this program's awesome. It's called Nomad Sculpt. It's available on the iPad Pro, and it's really great. This is the latest one I'm working on. It's Kevin the Illegible from the story. I had these hands that I had made. I kind of tried carving them out of a single piece of clay. It wasn't really working. So the new one is I've actually built the fingers one joint at a time and assembled them. So they're a bit more complicated, but they let me, move things around, and I can, I made each piece so it's easy to... Thanks, NPC. I appreciate that. But I figured I'd be on here for a little while. The Kickstarter's going great. I'm super happy with it. The next stretch goal at 4 is going to be the character cards, which I don't think I have an example. Actually, I can show. I'm going to put the Kickstarter on the screen. Hide the iPad. Go to chat. Well, that's not right. Gotcha. That's wise, NPC. Hide the music credits. Thank you, Kevin MacLeod. Where are you? Alpha channel, iPad. It's not a no. It's not a CC. It's not a collectible card game at all. It's not a trading card game. It's more like. Do I still have those alphas up? I do. Let me turn those off so they're not spinning in the background. But where are they? Ah. So they have they have stats on them, which I think people who aren't playing D&D and 5e and things like that, I don't think they're going to care about the stats except relative to the other characters. I think it gives them kind of this arbitrary metric. But they were fun to write. Like, Melvin's gear, including the Intoximants, the Grand Intoximancer's staff, the Beard of Holding, and the Grand Flagon of Free Refills. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Super happy with that. But so the PDF of those are available on the campaign page if anybody wants to download them. I mean, they don't have to back the project. And this is an example of what I was talking about, NPC. That hole that was created there was so the arrow in the final sculpt could just slide right in. But I do have some role-playing game ideas first. I would like to do some more stuff set in the world of the Middle Age, kind of expand on the world, that the stuff that the comic is never going to cover. But there we are. We're doing great. These took a while to do. Oh my goodness. I'm pretty sure I did them all wrong. I created those in Photoshop by importing individual frames of a movie I recorded off of the iPad. So I think I did the whole thing backwards. But I figure we'll be here on YouTube for a little bit. Yeah, I do agree that I was hoping for that. The other Kickstarters I've done have all been in the comic book side of things and the comic side of things, and so I know what I'm doing there. I usually have a intro video where I explain who I am and what this. No, I haven't. I didn't do that with the first 2 graphic novels, but I did with the latest one. I said, "Here's who I am. Here's the trailer." I thought I'll make a personal appeal, but the gaming section doesn't seem to have that as much. It's much more of a here's the thing. It's not a here's an artist talking to you. It's more like here's our production company producing a game. I don't think they expect people to do it in an artisanal way. So I was kind of flying blind with this. But a friend of mine who has backed a lot of games, he said, you've got the models, show them, rotate them, show people how cool they are. And so I did that. Yeah, and there's a lot of other stuff I didn't do right out of the gate, like having add-ons built in. A lot of people asked me for them, so I introduced add-ons after the fact. So, at this point, if people want to add them, they have to kind of go back into the system and they have to basically change their pledge. So today was kind of a quiet day on the campaign. Usually day 1 is big, day 2 is 50%. Today was much quieter. I think I had told everybody about it on day 1, and they were all there. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm optimistic that we can unlock the Waddle Bottom figure, but we'll see how far we can go. I did update one of my previous Kickstarter campaigns telling everybody, hey, go check out this one. And that may have helped. I don't know. But I've emailed everybody. I've told everybody. Anything else I do now is just going to be pestering people. Okay. Change the minis back. Turn off the iPad. Let's go back to the iPad. So the goal is to have this hand looking pretty good, and then flip it. So I don't want to create 2 hands. I don't want to sculpt 2 different hands. That would be bonkers. So that cylinder is the staff, I think. It is. I'm not sure what that sphere is or where it is in the world. Oh, that's way over there. I don't have to worry about that right now. So the trouble is when you merge things together in this program, again, this is Nomad Sculpt for folks who are watching, and it's got some quirks, excuse me. So if I merge this whole thing together, suddenly everything's going to be named the same thing. So every individual piece will be called Pinky, and so it could get complicated quickly. So what I'm going to do is clone everything. Thumb, middle, sphere, pinky. And I'm going to simple merge those together and just get them out of the way so I have a backup of the hand. So if I mess it up, I have this version to fall back on. I do that a lot. So backup hand. All right. So now I'm going to voxel merge them together, which is kind of like taking them from being separate pieces that just happen to be grouped together, but turning them into a single object as if they were all created from the same piece of clay. At that point, they will be, unless I cut them, they are basically a single inseparable unit. I have to separate them first and then voxel merge them. That bit of decay there is because I didn't click the Keep Sharp Edges button. But I knew I was going to be mushing this thing around. In the end, I'm going to add all this decay to the figure anyway to make it look like it's undead. phone over here in case anything comes up. How are we doing? Let me check that message. Were there any tutorials I watched, or was it all trial and error? Trial and error. It was, I couldn't find any... No, that's not true. There was one video I found on YouTube, and it was all about the stamp tool. And that was basically the clue that was, there is, in the brush tool, there is this kind of chart. It looks like a line chart. This is the fall off. And the fall off, if you set it something like that, you get less crazy results. Keeping this table, oops, I added an extra bit. Keeping this table low and flat. HARD. Keeping that low and flat made it so that you could control the brush a bit more. The default setting is just like things just go out of control. Like you start to stamp something into it, and it's not a little. Suddenly, it's like everything about it is out of control. The rotation of it's crazy. Everything becomes incredibly sensitive and set to 11. It's too much. So lowering this gives you way more control over the stamp tool, and that stamp tool is what helped me make. I don't know, the texture on the tree in the wattle bottom sculpt. I didn't really get to use it with the first four sculpts because I didn't know how. I couldn't control it. I was using the default settings, and they were mad. They were pure madness. So, where were we? But it's good to see you, JRD. I'll take a break someday. But the Kickstarter is going great. We got through the first stretch goal, unlocking the sticker. I know it was not a very sexy first stretch goal. It was more like, okay, if this is the only stretch goal we achieve, I want to make it something that's, something I can easily do. I can easily provide. Also, I wanted something that I could fit into the tiny box of minis, because I don't want to do that thing I did with my very first Kickstarter. Was I had a large book. The book was like 10 by 15, which is large enough. 10 inches by 15 inches. And then I added a print to it, which was 11 by 17, which made the box even bigger. So I'm like, never add anything. Never if this counts as any kind of insight in Kickstarters, never add a stretch goal that's larger in dimensions than the main object that you're offering. So that's why the minis are like. JRD says, "Yeah, the hardcovers are in town at the UPS facility, but you have to wait till Monday." Wait, so you're going to be able to get your books in time? Is that the update, JRD? Okay, so I did have those other hands here. I just didn't like them. I tried carving them out of a single piece, but they didn't really have the quality I liked. The hands I've made with the other models were all constructed like one knuckle at a time. Well, that's great, Charity. That's fantastic. I'm happy for you. I ordered some copies that basically to replace what I think what I will hopefully sell at Heroes, but it looks like they might arrive in time. And it was that bloop advice at Shakes Print 8. Yeah, that's the way to go, JRD. Always make the prints, the art prints and things. So with this one, it was a sticker because that'll fit in the box, and then it was the trading cards, and they are poker sized or baseball size. Wait, not poker. Baseball card size, like 2.5 by 3.5. Those will fit in the box as well. So the notion was that the 10K stretch goal. Let me see if I get the Kickstarter back up there. I think we're still. I don't think that refreshes at all, but we're at 69 backers at the moment. Thank you all so much, and keep it clean, people. But I'm keeping these. I'm going to keep these digits separate as long as I can, because if I merge them together, then suddenly they can sort of bleed into one another and merge across each other, and suddenly create these weird gaps. And because at some point once they become their own single bit of clay, they can mush together in a way that currently as separate, distinct objects they can't. But Max, Siobhan, you were saying about the or MPC. Let's stick with our code names. And by the way, everyone should subscribe to the Max Powers comic on WEBTOON, which is at 105 subscribers. I basically taught myself. The very first videos I recorded, I had all this advice that I was coming up with along the way, like do this, do this, do this, and a lot of that stuff got... it became very useless very quickly as I was learning the other ways of doing things. For instance, one of my biggest mistakes was the idea of intersecting objects. It's fairly common in a lot of vector programs where if you have one shape and another shape, you should be able to, where they overlap, the Venn diagram of the two things, you should be able to keep only that intersection. And I just didn't know how to do it. If you create a box, let's say, and a sphere, let's say, I'll move it up and out of the way a little bit. So you have these two objects. I'm going to hide this staff for the moment. That's kind of just a placeholder for where the weapon would go in the pose. I was kind of putting these basic shapes down just to get the energy of the piece right. But so first validating the shapes, which turn them from being geometric, simple objects into real things, into real pieces of clay, real. Okay. So if I select the two objects and I turn the sphere invisible by clicking this eye, and then I voxel merge them, the sphere, I don't even have the screen on the screen. I'm such a dope. I've been hypnotizing everybody with the alphas. I'm going to undo that and show you what I mean. Sorry about that, NPC. So I created a box and a sphere. Where they overlap, I'm used to having my screen on this, my iPad on the screen. When I voxel merge them, the sphere gets removed from the box. And we could go the other way around, where if I turn the box invisible and voxel merge them, you can see how the box gets removed from the sphere. But if you turn them both invisible, that's when you voxel merge them, you only get where they overlap. And I did not know how to do that. And that would have changed how I would have built quite a few things. Wattlebottom's crown, various jewels and gems and things like that I made. Maybe even Sir Quimp's armor. But just knowing that you can intersect objects. And so that's just with the two simple objects. So once you start thinking about, oh wait, once you create a skull, what can you do with that? Once you create a blade, what can you do with that? I will say one of the trickiest bits about this program, unlike Procreate, it does not autosave. I just don't think it can because there's so much memory involved. Subscribe to Max. I have a way to catch up. I'll have to... But I hope everyone's having a lovely Friday night. But I'm going to stream here for a little bit. Then I'm going to go over to Twitch and we'll stream over there. That's my usual hangout. I recently became a Twitch affiliate. I was on the fence about it for a while, and running this Kickstarter has made me rethink. I was making the case all along that when I launch the Kickstarter, I'll want to be able to broadcast to all the various platforms. And so when I launched the Kickstarter, I decided to stream to YouTube and Facebook. And there were people who popped in who said, I didn't even know about this Kickstarter. I had no idea. So it immediately validated my worry that narrowcasting was a bad idea. Kurgan, I'm too young to get that reference, JRD. Yeah, he does. This is the hand of Kevin the Illegible. And the idea was I really want these to be very skeletal. But I also want them to be strong. Usually skeletal hands are very wispy with very thin digits. And I want them to be, at the same time, very bony, but also intimidating. So they have to kind of be bulky skeletal fingers. But so far there's a lot of good contact with the staff, or at least with this makeshift staff, so that when they print, I know I am JRD. I have to say, I know I'm your age, but I have to say that that's my go-to line. I'm too young to get that reference. Usually that involves me admitting that I know that it's a reference to something. Okay. Let me see if I can make this finger skeletal. I really worry about merging them together just yet, but heck with it. Let's do it. I think I've narrowed it enough. I think I can add decay at the end to it, and little cuts and grooves they can take out of the model. But let's, keeping edges sharp, because now we're merging the whole thing together. I'm going to increase the resolution. In the end, I have to lower the resolution in order to make things simple enough for anybody to download the file and print the file. And there are a ton of little details that I built into the waddle bottom figure. Like, I filled his environment with stuff. I filled his environment with stuff. Like there's a little lizard back there. I don't know if it's going to be seen. Come on, go into focus, please. Every follicle on my arm is visible, but the mini is not. Can we do this one more time? Is there a way to hold him in a way that people can see it? I need tongs. But there's a very tiny lizard there on the bottom. And so it's super subtle stuff. I'm amazed anybody can see it at this size, but I definitely need another camera. I need to have another camera wired over to a desk where I can do drawing, and I can just put a mini down and it'll be in focus and not have to do this puppet show. Okay, I've merged the fingers and the palm together. I'm going to increase the intensity of the smoothing brush and try to mush them all together. Whenever the smoothing's not working, I go and remesh. There are some things I'm not as concerned about, like where the wrist is going to connect with the forearm, because I haven't connected the forearm yet, so I don't know. I just can't be that concerned about it just yet. And again, this is a bonus stream. I usually stream on Twitch on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 to 8. One of the small reasons for doing this, okay, not the small reason. One of the big reasons for doing this is that the Kickstarter's running for the Minis from the Middle Age, where these sculpts that I've been creating of characters from my story are going to be turned into D&D minis, or they've become D&D minis, and we're just trying to figure out how many do we want to make, and that's what the Kickstarter's for. So where these pieces are intersecting, those are fused. So any weirdness that I wanted to do with kind of like adding depth or cutting into that space, suddenly that's impossible. So that's one of the reasons why I was hesitant to fuse them together, but it's got to happen at some point. Oh, and I can't get too precious about it because I'm certain I'm going to learn something in 5 days that I would have done this completely differently. But I have some ideas for I wear a GoPro on my head. have some ideas of. I'm hoping that at Heroes Con I'll be able to direct people to the Kickstarter. I'm gonna have a sign on my table with the QR code. Say, hey, go check out my. I'll have the sample minis there, and I even made some larger ones that I can have on the table so people can see them from a little bit further away. Haven't quite figured out how the whole layout's gonna work, but. But I streamed the first time the other day on Facebook in a long time, and Facebook put a lot of people in seats. I kind of think there's a... I think that was part of their methodology. Like, hey, he hasn't been on in a while. Let's give him a little dopamine burst and see if we can get him to stay. Normally I'd be smoothing all these things out, but my thought would be that if I can keep these loosely in place, they will feel more like muscle. So I don't know if I'm not going to get too far into it right now, but I think it's something I can do at the end, which will give this whole thing a very cool feel. I appreciate that, NPC. I'm sure that everyone on Twitch will love to see you. And JRD says, I made 4x4 handouts with QR for folks to go to the Ringo page to nominate me in Kidlit. That's great. Well, how did you make your QR codes? I was thinking I was going to use Bitly. They seem to have that built in. I never know if there's going to be someone who's going to be tracking the information. I'm skeptical of every company. Okay, I just said I wasn't going to fuss around with that too much. There I go fussing around with it. The details no one's ever going to see. Unless they print, again, unless they print this like at the size of a statue. I'm still futzing. What am I doing? Stop that. Okay, so let's duplicate that hand and we'll rotate it to create the other hand. Since I'm not going to create two hands. Left hand, because all I ever care about is my view and not the creatures I'm creating's view. So this is the right hand, or rote hand. Dagnabbit, typing too fast. And now I'm going to flip it. I'll look at it from the top view. The top view. I'm going to hide the left hand. And the front view. Oh, it's going to autosave. That's great, Jaredy. Hide the left hand again. I just want to make sure that it's centered on the staff. Top view. Also really concerned about having enough contact with the hand and the object so that, again, when it prints, it will not fall apart. That looks good. I also like when it intersects with the when it intersects with the object, especially for hands. I think it looks natural when the skin flattens when it gets against an object. Andrea, that's fantastic. That's wonderful. was nice to see you. I'm hoping to have a list of recommended, to be able to refer some vendors to people, so that hopefully folks will find a vendor they can trust. A lot of people who create STL files and 3D models and stuff, they have a version of they have a tier of support, which, I don't know, do I like that grip? Does that look right? Should the fingers be closer together when they get to that point? No, it's skeletal. I want to keep them spindly. I'm not going to overthink it. Too late. I know. Yeah, it really is. It's so good to see you. I'm hoping that the world is coming back to normal slowly. I mean, COVID just got Fauci, so I got to think I think COVID feels like its work is done. I'm excited to go to the Baltimore Comic-Con. We got Heroes Con next week, and I'm going to be doing a few other conventions so far this year. The Savannah Comic-Con, my first time going there. And then the Palm Coast Con, which is, or Palm Con? In Palm Coast, Florida. No, wait, not Palm Coast. Palm Beach, Florida, excuse me. Good grief, Conley. Was it about all the various shows I'm doing? Is that it? I'm not rooting for COVID. I'm always happy when someone succeeds at what they want to do. You know? That would be great, Andrea. I hope so too. I can't wait for Baltimore. Except I still have a scary godmother piece to do, which is the theme of their yearbook, and I need to do that piece, and I haven't started it yet. And I saw some of the pieces that some of the other artists have done, and they have been so impressive that I just want to smash my fingers in a car door. They're really, really lovely. And, I'm like, I want to put an original spin on it. Yeah, she's great. And then, like, my brain goes, well, what if I made a 3D model of Scary Godmother? And then I use that as a ref, and I'm like, oh, God, my goodness. And I want to get it done on time. I'd still be working on her hands by the time the show ran around. Okay, so I'm very glad I'm getting rid of these. I didn't like them. I'm going to save a version of this just to embarrass myself with it later. We'll save it as Kevin 2. The Waddle Bottom figure got, so I think, up to Waddle Bottom 11. But you're done, JRD. JRD is saying, I'll email you mine. You'll feel better. Yeah, but you're done, and done is better than good. It goes done, perfect, good, and bad. All right, you lovely people. I've saved this version. I'm going to call it here on the Facebook and the YouTubes, and I'm going to head on over to Twitch. I promised those folks I would be there next. It was great to see everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the Kickstarter campaign. If you haven't, you have until tomorrow night. It's for the early bird. I know I gave like the early bird folks 3 days to get there because I thought, I don't know. I just didn't want it to be a thing where every time I go onto social media, someone's like, wait, you're having a Kickstarter? I'm like, I feel terrible if they miss out on something. Especially I wanted my Patreon supporters and all my past Kickstarter supporters to get a shot at getting these things. I am super excited about them. This is actually just a large resin print, but it's easier on the camera than a mini. This is the actual mini that was created by Trenchworks. They are the casting company. They do lots of beautiful work, and I mean, you can see Quimp's expression. If you check out the campaign page, you can see these in detail. And this weekend, what I'll be doing is a step-by-step. When I assembled these, some of the things I did, and show some of the process. You can see the original things on the sprues language I had to learn. Yeah, they're really awesome. And also tips like the glue I used. And I hope I closed that. Well, it's closed forever. So if I didn't. But the glue I used and the snips I used, things like that. It's just like kind of hobby stuff. But you're all lovely. I'm going to head on over to Twitch now. If you go to twitch.tv/Steve Conley, you'll be able to see me there in about 10 minutes. Have to change some wires back here and settings and things like that. And also medicate my cat. He's due for his pill. But thank you all so much. Check out the Kickstarter. It's if you go to bit.ly/TMA Minis, the Middle Age Minis, you can find it there. Or if you go to Kickstarter and just type in the Middle Age, it should pop right up. Or go to Middle Age Comic. I've got links all over the place. Have a lovely night. And if you want to see me on Twitch, go to twitch.tv/Steve Conley, and I will be there in about 10 minutes. So I'll see you there in a little